speaker series we do at the hotel. In March, we're going to be celebrating 2 years of doing speaker series at this hotel. You know, thank you. The interesting thing is when we started, I don't know, what do we have, 500 downloads? Now, because of Nick and all of his hard work and his incredible team and our work, we actually have 150,000 downloads per episode now. So thank you all. 165. You're going to hear from 3 amazing experts tonight. We can't wait to have them introduce themselves to you. Next week, we're doing a really special show, as special as this one, about boutique high-end concierge medicine and your health and how to keep your New Year's resolutions. So it's all in one. All right, Nick is going to introduce the show. During the show, he's going to say, "From the Bay," and then you guys have to say, "and beyond." All right, we're going to practice it one time. From the Bay and beyond. All right, Nick, take it away.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. Before we get started, I want to give a special shout out to Dr. Sarkis. So, Dr. Sarkis, please join the stage.
Happy New Year to every one of you. I'm so glad to be here and share my personal experience with you guys. I've been involved with a new medication since last year, actually, to be exact, September of 2023. It's a new medication, came in the market, approved by FDA, investigational treatment to reverse dementia. You know, all of us, unfortunately, we will have some sort of memory loss, but unfortunately, as we age, we will have more and more. This medication is very safe. I am the #1 in United States after being approved by FDA to use it. And presently, I go to all around United States, give speech and talks about the medication. Is about monoclonal antibody, anti-galactin-3. Is a medication that is being used through infusion, 1 hour. It's very safe and is basically reverses dementia, all kind of dementia. It doesn't matter how bad they are. Presently, we have a lot of celebrities themselves and the family member using this medication with excellent result, unbelievable. Not only affect the brain, affects Parkinson's disease. I had patient after patient, halfway through treatment, believe it or not, their speech comes back normal. I was shocked. I did not expect it. I treated them for dementia, but yet through the treatment, I saw them, her speech came back as they leave. You know, they used to have that shovel kind of steps they have, it goes away, and their tremor. And I had patients that they had to hire people to do their paperwork because they are businessmen, and after 2 treatments, they had to do it all by themselves. They need anyone to help them out. So it's safe. There's no drug interaction with chemo, with anything else. My mom was my first patient, and there's no limit for the age. My oldest patient is 94-year-old. My mom is 91, but not only helps with dementia, helps with multitude of other diseases besides Parkinson's disease. I had patient with multiple myeloma on chemo. I didn't do that for his cancer. He came back. He said to me, his chemo didn't work, and they changed it 3 times. One treatment, his cancer marker went down to half. And of course, I said, "Oh, thank you, Lord." But, you know, things happens without us to know what else is going to get benefit. It helps a lot of other diseases, asthma, guts, congestive heart failure. So basically, it's a medication approved by FDA for dementia, all kind of dementia, including Parkinson and many other diseases. We see improvement. It's safe, and I will be happy to answer questions if you have later on.
Yeah, we'll hold those till the end. Doc, what's the name of the medication?
It's called TB006.
TB006. Thank you, doctor.
Merci.
Thank you.
All right. Nick.
All right, who's ready for some zombies action? All right, everybody, welcome to episode 147 of Silicon Zombies, where you get the best brains from the Bay and beyond. We're thrilled to be having all sorts of wonderful folks here, especially in the deep tech space. So molecules and microchips is the theme for today. So we've got Sabrina Paseman from Omni. We've got Nick Talken from Hey Albert and Dr. Capella Kerst from Gecko Materials. And of course, we want to give a big shout out to our man Human here. And round of applause to the beautiful Park James Hotel. And of course, our friends at Necodex. That's Necodex. If you need help building a product or designing a product, Necodex is your team to talk to. And we'll have their information in the show notes below. So without any further ado, it's the moment that we've all been waiting for. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Maybe some quick introductions. Sabrina, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrina Paseman. I am a general partner at Omni Ventures. We are the manufacturing tech VC. My background, I worked at Apple for a number of years inside of the product design team and really saw manufacturing from the inside out. I founded 2 companies and then began Omni. And for the past 4 years, manufacturing tech has been our focus. And so our whole mission at Omni is to find where the outsized opportunities exist inside of the market. And we're very bullish in manufacturing. And a big pillar of that is material science. And so really excited to talk about the intersection of materials and AI today.
Nick.
Yeah, hey guys, Nick Talken. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at Albert Invent. We're a software company serving the chemistry and material science space. Before this, I was a chemical engineer, co-founded a company called Molecule, which is quite relevant. And we were a 3D printing company. So we made materials for the 3D printing industry, SLA, DLP. Sold that company, invented some software, and then I'm now serving the industry that kind of was born into. So excited to talk to you guys today about that.
Hello, my name is Capella Kerst. I am the founder and CEO of Gecko Materials. You may be wondering, why is there a bottle of wine in her lap? Can you actually hold this? I'll show you our party trick. So what Gecko Materials is, it's easier to show sometimes than share. So Gecko Materials is holding this bottle of wine. And this is the party trick that we did on TechCrunch, falls off under its own weight. So again, you just place it down, hold the bottle, falls off under its own weight. You can play with it later. Thank you. Thank you. So yes, it was quite an honor to win second place at TechCrunch Disrupt this past year. Gecko Materials is a revolutionary bio-inspired dry adhesive company. You can reuse us over 120,000 times in any barometric environment. So here on Earth as well as in space. We're currently on the International Space Station for the 3rd time. Actually, it's very exciting. We have ISS actually just launched a little video about one of the missions that we're helping them with. And here on Earth, we help companies like Honda, Ford, Toyota, GM, GE, Samsung, Intel, just to name a few. Don't want to offend any customers I didn't name. You're all awesome. But we help companies save energy, time, and money. And I'm truly honored to be on this panel. Thank you so much, Nick, for having me, and excited for this conversation.
Well, let's stick with you. Thank you. Thank you all 3. We're glad you're here. Let's stay with the idea of materials. Give us some examples of how self-healing materials and ultra-lightweight composites are being applied in various industries right now. And whoever wants to take it can take it.
Oh. So right now we're really seeing a transition in sustainable lightweight composites, self-healing materials, new mechanical mechanism attachments such as Gecko Materials, just to name a few. Specifically in the hardware space, there's going to be a huge innovation. I know that software has had that kind of uptick and that interest and has caught the VC eye for a long time, but the next wave along with this AI wave will be hardware. So that's kind of my take and what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, so we serve the chemical industry now, and so we've got tens of thousands of material science projects in our platform all over the world in about 30 countries. And if you mentioned sustainability and there's a huge driver now to replace, these oil-based or crude-based supply chains and try to not only just get a more sustainable material, but have things that are more sustainably processed. And so as an example, take an iPhone, right? So you want to recycle an iPhone, well, then you have to rip apart the adhesive, right? That bonds the screen onto the iPhone. Well, that's adhesive was not designed to be ripped apart, and so it's actually really hard to do. And so when you start thinking about the physical world, which is all chemistry, there's a lot of opportunity to make better materials that are not just serving their purpose, but actually serve the sustainability or the recyclability purpose on top of that too.
When you invest in companies, is this something that you're looking for, self-healing material? Like, tell us some of the stuff you've invested in and why you said yes to it.
Absolutely. Well, at Omni, we are interested in software plays, but coming from a hardware background, something that we're very bullish on is practical applications for industry. Self-healing materials are super exciting for a variety of industries, including automotive space. You can imagine that all of these products that go out into the world have a shelf life, more or less. They all go through environmental stresses, mechanical stresses, et cetera. And so having self-healing materials, I think, is an incredible innovation that is going to make all industries more sustainable.
Can you give us an example of a self-healing material that is like in everyday that we're unaware of, or maybe we're aware of it?
I think every day, not sure. Maybe the other panelists might be better spoken to that, but I know that there are innovations inside of metals, polymers, and ceramics on this. Another exciting one that I just heard about recently is on concrete, in which they have bacteria that actually create limestone, I believe is correct. When the concrete basically undergoes different stress and has microfractures, the bacteria actually release a material to bond the cracks. So there's so much cool stuff happening in the world. And I think the innovation is one piece of it. As a VC, I'm very focused on not just the technology, but also the way that's able to be scaled and actually implemented. And so I would love to have more conversations with founders and folks about how to bridge that gap from taking things from basically concept to production. When I was at Apple, that was actually the core of one of my main roles there. We were pitched and saw in the market many novel concepts. And as you may be aware, Apple is like very specific to only launch designs that are fully baked and actually ready to go off the bat. No room for kind of like Linux style, like it'll break and you can fix it as you go. Apple creates fully formed solutions. And I think having that as a formative part of my early career has influenced the way that I also see VC. Like, of course, we invest in pre-seed, so we're not expecting everyone to have like Apple complete solutions right off the bat, but understanding at least how the path to ensure that it's not just technology that we're investing in, but also a fully formed solution that has potential for business implications. That's something that we're very excited about as well.
You speak of to self-healing, and personally, I don't think in my everyday life, unfortunately, I'm not at a space in which I have any material, but Gecko Materials will hopefully be a household name, and kind of along the same vein of self-healing, a shameless plug, I know. How many times can I say Gecko Materials in this podcast is the new goal? You can count. We're taking bets. So basically, the reusability. So back to Apple, say, for example, if Apple, I don't know, maybe Apple's listening. If Apple was to attach something that only the Genius Bar would know, instead of having this adhesive, which you said was not meant, as Nick pointed out, as not meant to be removed, if you had something that was removable that you were able to then reuse and not destroy the whole component, but you could take out, or the whole piece, you could just take and remove a component, Gecko Material is key. And that's what we're focusing on, helping specifically in the semiconductor industry with these component parts. If you look deep within inside the car, deep within inside sensors, you can actually use kind of a quote unquote self-healing with Gecko Materials, because you can reuse this over 120,000 times. So you could remove the bad, put the new one up without actually having that waste. So it's kind of getting to self-healing a little bit just because of the reusability aspect. So you can also think of self-healing as also a high number of reusability. For reference, Velcro can actually only be used 2,000 times. So anything that exceeds that, we're right now at 120,000, and we're aiming, one of our customers actually did a 5 million cycle. So technically for those self-healing products, I'd love to see their reusability. Like, how many times can you damage this to see that reusability? Because if it's quote unquote self-healing, that's great. But if it's self-healing only 10 times, that's still not a sustainable process or material.
It's almost like mean time between failure, but for a product. And it's interesting because my guess is, just like Velcro, like biomimicry was kind of like the inspiration for Gecko. In fact, your initials are in the name, which is of Gecko Materials, right? But Sabrina, I wanted to jump over to you for a quick second. You talked a little bit about how Apple develops fully baked products, and then compare that or contrast it with, like, say, Facebook, for example, that will push out something that maybe isn't perfect, but they'll get it in the hands of real users. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but they get to learn about that and then implement that in the next iteration. Which one of these two do you personally prefer?
As a early stage investor, I think it is exceptionally critical to test, fail, and iterate. The Apple model has worked well because I think the influence of Steve Jobs of kind of being able to, he had a very unique ability to be able to predict what the user wanted before they knew what they wanted. The majority of people don't have that kind of perception and intuition. And therefore, for the vast majority of folks, I'd say that it makes a lot more sense to iterate and test as many times as you can, make it be a very open process. And I know that that can actually be very scary for most founders because you don't want to fail in the eyes of everyone. But I will say that every single company that is in our own portfolio and those that we've invested in even pre-portfolio have all had very substantial pivots in order to become successful. And you will not be able to pivot unless you fail first. So it's a really important asset.
Nick, go back to like who you are and what your company does, because as you explain it, my question is going to be boring.
Yeah, so I mean, the origination of this idea was when we were making 3D printing materials. We realized that the iteration time, kind of what you were talking about there, is, I mean, it can be like 2 or 3 years to launch a new material into the market. And that sucks because your customer has a need today for a footwear product, let's say, and in 2 or 3 years from now, their need is probably different and it's been changed. And so the way that material science and chemistry, for the most part, is still done is it's paper notebooks and Excel in the lab. And that is really inefficient. It's inefficient for the individual, but it's even more inefficient as a company when you are trying to collaborate across time zones and different laboratories. And so we created software to help us manage our data, to help us collect our information, and then eventually to leverage that so you can apply machine learning and AI on top of it.
So with the 3D printer, give us an idea of some of the things you guys have created.
Yeah, so I mean, 3D printing is a lot about production personalization, I guess. And so again, this is the previous.
Have you ever 3D printed a 3D printer?
No, but I have
I have friends that have.
I've done a full body scan in 3D printing myself, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, yeah.
How do we know
Christmas
this is the
gifts.
actual?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Does it look accurate?
There were many nicks,
Okay,
and then I
okay.
had a pretty big one.
I was
that
like,
gave,
how
yeah.
big was this printer? Sounds.
We've all seen on Instagram or TikTok the house that was 3D printed.
Yeah.
Do you guys have that capability?
No, not, like, and again, it's ours was all about, like, it's all resin-based printing. So if you guys have seen like the TED Talk where they pull the object kind of Terminator style out of the liquid and it's a solid, that was the type of printing that we were doing, and we made a lot of the materials that went into that. And so, yeah, it was really about how do you take something like, let's say, the dental industry, right? Where traditionally, if you wanted to make a mold to do some sort of dental surgery, you'd literally be hand carving that because it's only going to fit on your mouth. But now I'm sure you guys have all been to the dentist and you get a scan, and then all of a sudden you have an aligner or you have a stone model or something. And so we made all the materials that went into that.
And that's from 3D printing today, for the most part.
Yeah.
That's incredible. All right, well, for all three of you, like, what ethical considerations, like, do you guys face in this industry? Sabrina, I'd like to start with you because you're investing, and I'm just wondering, I don't know how much you're willing to open up, but has there been a time where there was an ethical concern where you said, no, I can't do this. It's going to make me $1 billion, but ethically has that happened?
I think in the realm of AI, there certainly are, as a VC, it's incredibly important to have ethics as forefront because, as we all know, it's not a governmentally mandated thing that people are thinking about when they're understanding AI. So in the realm of AI and materials, I think there's two main things that you need to consider. One is data privacy, and this is anything relating to, companies are going to be uploading their own data sources. Even in the healthcare sector, people are uploading their own personal data. Figuring out how to segment that appropriately and make sure it doesn't get contaminated into other people's outputs is really important. So that's something that we consider and make sure that when founders are building in this space, they're taking all of those considerations. And the other facet within AI is making sure that there isn't a lot of bias inside of the systems. And so making sure that you're not iterating into a very specific niche that prevents you from actually being able to make true discovery. Those are the two things that we focus on as VCs in the realm of AI and ethics. There isn't something that I can specifically say in the material sector that was unethical that we chose not to invest into. But there are always things where we have to do the diligence with the founder to understand, like, AI is a very powerful tool that can actually be used for good or evil, and we want to make sure that you're steering towards the good side and putting all the processes in place to make that possible.
What are some of the more fun or interesting applications of companies that Omni has invested in that's fixing like the dirty, the dull, the dangerous?
Yeah. So thank you for mentioning the 3Ds. Within manufacturing, dirty, dull, and dangerous are basically our investment thesis. So what we want to solve, we don't necessarily want automation and robotics and everything to replace what humans are good at. We want to replace things that they don't want to do, meaning things that are dull, too boring to really focus on, dirty, dangerous. So dirty and dangerous are examples, for example, like in meat packing. It's one of like the most horrible industries with the highest attrition rates of any industry. No one really wants to do it. The hours are horrible. Disease is really prominent inside of that industry. And so ensuring that we have robotic systems in place, for example, that can totally replace the human interactions in that market is something that we're very interested in. And we are actively looking for as many opportunities in those markets as we can. Recently we've been doing a lot of investments into the dull. So coming from industry as an operator inside of the engineering space, I can definitely say there was way too much of my time being spent like coordinating emails, trying to like reparse PowerPoint presentations into something that I could present to management. And that was the dullest part of my job. It wasn't actually me thinking, it was just me reprocessing information. That's exactly what AI is very good at nowadays. And so we are investing in companies that can actually reform the dull parts of people's jobs and have them do that very quickly and immediately, and have them focus on the creative aspects of their jobs, which they really enjoy.
Nick, Dr. Capella, do you guys want to talk about the ethical stuff or anything, whatever you want to talk about?
Yeah. Open floor. Yeah. So on the ethical side of things, our software is really about first managing the data of the scientific process, and then changing the scientific method, and so that you're simulating experiments before you go into the lab. And we get questions all the time from end users who are looking at using our software, or current users saying, are you guys trying to replace me, right? Are you trying to just make it so you don't need a scientist anymore and you can simulate the whole process? And first of all, with today's technology, that's not actually possible to do. But there's a lot of fear out there that that's going to happen in the future. And so one of the things we like to tell them is, no, we're not going to replace you, but a scientist using AI as part of their innovation process will likely replace a scientist who's not using it. And so there is this kind of FOMO aspect to it, I guess. The other thing that's really interesting that we're seeing more and more is because most of our customers are these very large, multinational Fortune 500 companies. They're looking at like, well, how do we bring humanoid robots, into our world? And so we had this industry leadership council meeting later last year, and the CTOs of these companies were trying to figure out, how do you introduce a technology like that without like ostracizing your entire workforce? And so it came back to a lot of the 3Ds. And so instead of going in there and saying, hey, we're going to take the hardest part of the scientific process, it was like, well, how do you clean up the lab, right? Or how do you get the raw materials in? Or how do you get the really big bag of chemicals dumped into the smaller bags so that you don't have to carry that and maybe hurt your back? And so those are great use cases where you can kind of take something that might seem ethically concerning around like the human workforce, but you can merge it in and have it not be competitive and still bring a lot of value into these companies.
Those are great points. I'm really excited for your company. And anyway, I can help. I'd love to. Ethics is I'm just getting so excited for him. I'm like, oh wait, I run my own company. Just hold on. But it's really cool what you're doing.
We are hiring.
Yeah, we're hiring too. We should we'll talk later. Okay. So ethics is a huge reason why I started Gecko Materials, a hardware space, being a female founder in this specific industry at this time. In third world countries or emerging countries that have going through their own kind of industrial revolution, India being one of those, and now the US taking manufacturing and bringing it back to US, we need to do it in a sustainable, clean, and environmentally and ethically posed way in doing that. So we're actually a PBC, so a public benefit corp. So we do help our customers, help their employees have safer, better working conditions. When you're talking about the meat industry, we actually are working with a meat industry customer to handling chicken using Gecko Materials. We help our customers get rid of those vacuum pumps that have hazardous oils that they contaminate the local groundwaters, just because in other countries, you know, they don't have the hazmat and the kind of the ethics that we have here, or even OSHA that we have here, right? Those structures that are put into place here in the US. So I do have that at the forefront of my mind constantly. How can we help our customers make better working conditions for their employees? We eliminate suction, airline, and vacuum dependencies for robotic systems. So we make robotic systems cleaner, less ear damage, less lung damage for the people that are working around that. And the villages that are around these facilities won't have the hazardous oils that they're dumping, because we replace suction, vacuum, and those turbo pumps in these large pieces of equipment that require the hazardous oils to run. So when you're talking about taking those hazardous oils and putting those in smaller bags, well, why don't we eliminate those altogether? So that's the ethics and the morals that we're going after, is making it cleaner and better working conditions for our customers, not only saving them energy, time, and money, but also just helping the surrounding villages, helping it's a ripple effect. So with Gecko, the reason it's capitalized in the middle and lowercase on the outside, it's also mimicking a water droplet and that ripple effect. So that's the ethics are kind of even built into our logo.
All right, we're going to open it up to the audience. I think you guys are tired of hearing us. We want to hear from you. Does anyone have a question for the expo?
Before we hand out the mic, Arnie, can you share what you got going on here?
So here's the mic you're going to use, and it's totally throwable. So anybody who's first searching the question? All right, 2 hands required. All you got to do. So here you go.
Do not hit.
Hey.
Oh my gosh.
I was going to say the dirty, dangerous, and dull. That's how I like my men, for sure.
Oh, thank you, Leslie.
No, it's all good.
Happy New
At
Year.
home, not at work.
No, I am completely impressed by all 3 of you. I'm so glad I came tonight. This is really impressive. All of you guys are awesome. Seriously. All right, who's next?
Oh,
That's it? You lost question?
That's so sweet.
You made it funny. You made a compliment.
I'm just kind of warming up the crowd.
Who has the
a
first
little
real
bit.
question? Oh, all right.
All right, ready?
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
About 6 inches away.
Oh, this is the microphone, got it. Would you invest in a company that will replace your very job as an investor with AI? Because the kind of not only intelligence, but the reasoning machines we're already building, I don't think it's no longer dull. You know, if it can do dull, it can do more than dull. So it's impossible to build just machines that can only do dull and nothing more than that, because the foundational architecture of AI is so different. So if I'm building right now, why would I even build just dull? I will actually go straight for the latest, greatest, the best that can also perform dull. So would you envision your own job to even exist in the next 24 months?
Totally. I think this is a really interesting piece around like creativity versus, I guess, established infrastructure. So if you're thinking about like what AI really excels at, it takes existing information and is able to parse it and know everything and parse it very well and efficiently. If we're thinking about creating novel things, though, I don't know if AI is really the right way to do it. It can combine a lot of existing information in different ways, in ways that we never have thought of before. So that's one type of creativity. But there are many other types of creativity that I don't think AI is well suited to do yet. I keep seeing like memes like, oh, if we had AI back 30 years ago, then they would have been able to, for example, write the Titanic from start to end and like totally produce it, but they wouldn't have had the Titanic to base off of. So wouldn't have been able to do that yet because it didn't exist inside of the common knowledge, right? So I think there are levels of creativity in which AI can excel at. There are also layers of creativity that it can't. And I'm using the word creativity here, but creativity analogous to opportunity in making the world a better place in different ways. And so I'd say that some jobs certainly will be able to be replaced by AI in a short period of time. Some jobs will not. And I think that what I do today, I have no doubt that there are people that are way smarter than me, that there are machines way smarter than me, trying to do and basically solve this piece of the puzzle. One thing that I think is really beautiful is that everyone has a different lived experience, though. And I think that based off of that, everyone can be creative in different ways. And therefore, I don't totally see a world in which AI takes every single person's job forever. I think there's always going to be an opportunity for humans to be able to make something that's meaningful and impactful.
Can I add to that? I love what you're saying. Not that I'm an investor at all, because I'm a CEO, but just to, like, thinking in your kind of shoes, I think it would disadvantage the CEOs to go to an AI investor because there's that human aspect and there's that kind of accountability and creativity. And also, I'm going to add creativity and also innovation. I don't think that AI can do the innovation with that heart component that a human intrinsically has. And I don't think as a CEO, I think morally and ethically, I would not want to take money from an AI investor because it's about the connection I have with my investor. It's about futuring the company and growing the company to that next level. You know, we're going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry, but I have these investors. Just shameless plug, we just closed our price round last week, so it's exciting. But like, thank you. It's so exciting because now I have this series of investors that I'm going to like grow the company with, and I like couldn't just call up, you know, a random AI bot and be like, oh, I have this like problem. Like, yeah, okay, ChatGPT could like advise me, but it's like, I don't know, the emotion wouldn't be there, you know? And I'm just so excited to like be physically in a room for my next board meeting with my new board members. I'm so excited. And like, I wouldn't get that excitement if I was there with like an AI bot, like a computer. Like, I just don't think it would be as fun. So yeah, there's a fun aspect too.
Who's got the next question? You want to toss it? Here we go. Catch it. Get ready to catch it. All right. Before you ask the question, do you want to tell us how much you raised, or is that a secret?
Oh, yes. What is it? Oh. It's a secret. We did
How much?
We did an $8 million price round. Woo! Thank you. We did our initial close. Yeah, the day before New Year's Eve. It was one of the most intense experiences I've ever been through. Like, you hear other CEOs talk about it, but going through a price round is way different than a safe round. Let me tell you, lots of legal documents, 500 pages of reading that I spent my Christmas break doing, and then we have a small allocation for our second close. But we did our initial close, money's in the bank, and now we have a small allocation. So if you're an investor out there, we have a very small allocation that's oversubscribed. But if you're cool enough, come join our journey.
All right, next question's here.
Great.
Hi, I had a slightly different question around, so I came from a materials background myself, and I used to have a startup to do with corrosion. And it was incredibly difficult to make any progress in that. It's a very slow industry, everything, you know, labs, product, everything takes 3 times as long minimum. So my question was around, you know, materials development that in industries or materials like this, where it's just time consuming in an early stage environment, like how do you do it? Because obviously there's grants, there's government, there's like, and we found that granted we were in Europe, which is more conservative, there was a lot of demand from companies and industries wanting to use our product, but very little support in the early stage to like make progress. I'm kind of curious who and how and where are those investors?
I think bootstrapping is a really big part of that hustle at the beginning to get that MVP, or at least I think this box is like making a weird hum. Sorry. I was like, it's giving a weird feedback to everybody. So we're gonna say bye-bye box. It's a cool box. I do.
We'll put it outside.
We'll put it outside.
Hi. Okay,
I feel bad for the box now.
It's cold outside. It has a nice jacket on. It's fine. I feel that that is what I've seen in a lot. Right now, though, the pre-seed VC investors, at least in Silicon Valley, has really exponentially like grown since we started. So I spun Gecko Materials out of my PhD, and when I started, yes, I was very lucky to be in 2021, but there was still very few deep tech, hardware, sustainability, clean tech. Those investors were few and far between, but the ones who were there were super passionate and really kind of gave that boost. And then we bootstrapped for 3 years, like over 3 years, with just $2 million. And to have a whole staff with benefits and everything, that's like, let me tell you, you think $2 million is a lot of money? It's not. You think $8 million is a lot of money? I'm already like, oh my gosh, okay, we're gonna IPO with just this 8 million. We can do it. And I'm like getting back into that bootstrapping mindset, but I just like hired like 3 people yesterday. And so it's just like, okay, no, I have to like always keep in the back of my mind, going back to ethics as a CEO, how much the money will run you to and what kind of milestones you get. So being very realistic with those investors, if you find the right investors and you have set milestones, you're like, okay, it's going to take X amount of years and X amount of money to get here, but also be bootstrappy with your money and be mindful with your money that you have and try to make it stretch as long as possible if you're a hardware company, because hardware, people have burned VCs in different aspects. So I think if you are more on the bootstrapping and conservative side of that, you'll actually get the investors to come alongside you. And then you hit those milestones, you hit them, like just make sure that you hit them, and then you won't have a problem raising. Yeah, but good luck.
Yeah, to add on to that, because I agree with everything you said. So the Molecule, the 3D company, we bootstrapped that one the entire time before we sold it. And like as a prime example of that, like a lot of our lab equipment was bought on eBay. You're not buying like $300,000 FTIRs. And then the other thing that we found is, the really big companies out there have big problems and they have a lot of money. And so if you can figure out how to solve those problems, we had Nike, Xerox, W.L. Gore like fund the business effectively like a VC, but it was no dilution and we didn't have to give away any equity. And so we did that for 4 years till we sold the company to Henkel, the biggest adhesive company in the world. The shame about it though is that there's not enough VCs that are funding these types of new material science or chemistry companies out there. And that's a real problem because all of the actual real problems we have in the world are going to be solved with chemistry.
Amen.
And nobody is funding them. And that's like, it's extremely frustrating. So thank you for trying to solve that, but we need to have more of you.
More of you. Xerox, copy yourself. That's true.
I had a quick point on AI and creativity real quick before I get to my question. So I think AI is very good at some types of creativity, like you're saying. Like we've all heard that Mozart wrote thousands of symphonies before he came up with only like 20, 50 of them are noteworthy, right? So AI is going to be really good at brute force creativity. If you ask it to come up with a picture of a box, it'll do it 10 million times and maybe 5 of them will be cool. And it can do that in seconds. So that's how we're going to be competing with it in a creative space. But when it comes to those new novel ideas, something that no one has ever thought of before and it can't go online to research about, that's where it will struggle. And hopefully we can still keep our humanity with that. Going to my question though, I think I heard someone mention something about Roman concrete up there at one point. Is that happening? Are we doing that? Are we going to start building cool coliseums again? Are there companies moving into that space? What have you guys heard?
I have a lot of friends in the concrete space. I don't think I've ever said that sentence out loud. They're really cool people. They have amazing startups. I'm very proud of the progress that they've made. They've made energy kind of low energy consumption of making concrete. Concrete is a very high energy intensive process. I had no idea until I made these friends in grad school and they started these companies. And I was like, oh, concrete is a interesting space. And it's getting a little sexy. Like I do think in the VC world, like people are, at least the VCs that I know, it is a sexy space to be in, like kind of AI and concrete. And I was like,
are they making
really?
like transparent concrete or that you can like see through?
Just transparent aluminum. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Aluminum, but not
Yeah, you got me.
I was trying to play on that. But yeah, so more energy, less energy intensive concrete companies. But yeah, if you've invested, you probably know a little bit more than
Can we get t-shirts that say concrete sexy? That's like
Tyler's the side story.
Anyone else?
So this one.
let's try the box again.
It should work, yeah.
Is the
He doesn't
box
like the
working?
box.
So starting with Albert, how did you come up with the names for your companies?
Thank you for that leading question.
We spoke before.
We really liked the idea of IBM's Watson. We thought that was a pretty cool, clever name. And so then we thought, okay, well, if you're going to have a scientist in the lab, who would you want to have next to you at the bench helping you every single day? And that's where Einstein obviously was the natural choice, but that's too obvious. And so we went with Albert. And you saw my shirt earlier, so this is a good opportunity to share it. But you know, this is kind of who we are trying to be, right? And if you can't see it, it's Einstein, but he's all tatted up with ripped jeans. And so it's kind of like the new on the old. And it's
It's a t-shirt line.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But really, it's you want to personify the brand, you want to make it fun, you want to make it approachable, and especially when you're trying to change like a pretty legacy big industry. So, thanks for the question.
Gecko. So Gecko is actually mimicked after the gecko's ability to climb up smooth vertical surfaces. So other companies that claim gecko inspired, they're actually octopus inspired. So they have microsuction. Our microstructure actually mimics the gecko's hair. They're little wedges that hold and shear, extremely strong force. Later, you can come up and play with the little adhesive. You can kind of see, I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up or not, but it's shiny in one direction and matte in the other, and then shiny in one direction, matte in the other. So again, we mimic the gecko's ability to climb up smooth vertical surfaces. I didn't want any weird spelling. People like suggested when I first spelled out my PhD, I was like, oh, you know what should I call the company? I was like, I really like gecko. And they're like, why don't you spell it odd? And I was like, I really don't like misspellings, even though I'm not an English major, but I really don't like misspellings anyway. And so I played with the capitalization. And so that, again, with the capital CK in the middle, it makes us brand recognizable. So when people see our logo and they see gecko spelled that way, they know it's us. So again, it's recognizable. It's all about branding. And it's a fun name, and I really like it. And then our logo was designed, actually very blessed by someone who designed the U.S. Air Force logo as well. So we had the same designer as one of the governments, because we help the government a lot and work with the Air Force and the Space Force. Yes, the Space Force is real. So we work with them. And I know that's always are they real? Yeah, they're real. They're really cool people too. They do fun stuff. So yeah. No geckos were hurt. All the geckos were living. Berkeley looked at the gecko and the actual, and then Stanford made it man-made. So that's why I came in.
Nice toss.
Great toss.
What are some applications of the gecko technology?
Yes, for pick and place robots on end effectors, we help eliminate suction, airline, and vacuum dependencies. So you can reuse us over 120,000 times. So if you're picking up something, just like I picked up that wine bottle, attach that to a robot end effector and pick and place, transferring wafers. If you toss a wafer, so if you're going at too high speeds and one wafer toss will have $1 million worth of downtime and damage. So Gecko Materials helps eliminate that downtime and damage in a more sustainable manner. So not only are we saving them from tossing and having an increase in their throughput, we increase their speed, but they also don't have that damage. On the International Space Station, we do attachment, debris collecting. We do different missions for attaching, detaching, anything you'd think of as that a suction cup can use, you can use us. Anything Velcro can use, you can use us. So it's a very versatile. So for robotics, semiconductors, car manufacturers, pick and place robots, even CVT. So when you're talking about robots, and I think at home robotics, you can actually replace the CVT in the elbow joint to be lighter weight, so you won't knock out grandma as it's doing its tasks in the home because it's lightweight.
I got to watch out for grandma. I did have a question for you, Sabrina. So we had a question about reasoning, which has obviously been a huge axis for just huge, crazy growth for AI. There's also been pre-training before that. And then after that came like inference time compute. So like there's different amounts of time that the model gets to spend on more difficult questions. Since you're at the bleeding edge of seeing all these new innovations, what's coming next in the AI model space? What's interesting for you?
This is a little bit of a cop-out of an answer, but we are really more bullish around specific industry solutions rather than the bleeding edge technology. So we are excited about a lot of different facets of like bleeding edge AI. But the way that we approach, the way that we look at the market is we see where the gaps in the solution space is, and we kind of plug technologies into that space. So a lot of times we actually aren't investing in people that have created the latest bleeding edge tech. We're focused on folks that have actually found the product market fit in a specific way, and we can help them reach that, of course, because we're pre-seed investors. You don't need to have everything solved before you come to us, but that's kind of where we play in our space.
Anyone else? All right.
You really don't like that, Bob. Personal.
So I
He
know,
likes getting up and walking.
I know Albert works with a pretty wide range of chemical and materials R&D companies. So I think just in your opinion, you know, everything that you know of new chemicals and materials development, what's going to be the biggest game changer that's, you know, that all of us might be able to see that's going to change our lives in the next few years? If you were to think of any kind of new R&D in that space that's just absolutely going to be like change life as we know it.
She just slipped me 100, so gecko. That's a really good question. I mean, again, I don't think that there's going to be one thing per se. I do think that chemistry has made quite a mess of the planet, unfortunately. And now a lot of the really big companies are taking some responsibility to clean that up. And I don't know how deep you guys are into like the sustainability stuff, but like there's like scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions when you look at these big companies. And most of the people we're working with are like way ahead of their own internal projections. And that's not just, hey, I want to make a more sustainable product, but it's how do they look at their entire supply chain and how are they sourcing materials from hopefully non-crude based all the way through. And so that's the hope that I have, is that we're going to continue to see that happen. And it requires the economics on both sides to work. And so you can't have it be 10x more expensive for the same type of materials. But all of a sudden you're starting to see the really big consumer brands, maybe they'll pay 10% more, 20% more to kind of like fund the initial investment into the space. And then you have a fully recyclable shoe or iPhone or car or whatever it may be. So that's my hope, but there's a lot of work that has to happen over the next couple of decades to make that true.
I would add to that, that's great, is local manufacturing. I think local manufacturing around the world will impact society, the planet, the future of our planet more than anything. So if we can just gear people up, making the economics work, so you could have local manufacturing, lower those supply chain distances and have us be less reliable on each other and more sustainable in all aspects of life, from food to equipment to computers to everything. Very embarrassing story about when I was a kid growing up here in Silicon Valley. And when I went to college and asked my roommate, why do you have an HP computer if you're from San Diego? You could ask me about that later. But like, I think local manufacturing really needs to happen at global scales for us to maintain a healthy world moving forward.
Do you think that's going to happen? Yeah, that's like
with Deco materials, yeah. That's our goal.
Let me add
so.
on. Let me add on to what you're saying. Hopefully, this doesn't trigger anyone. If it does, please forgive me. But this new administration that's coming in for your industry, do you see it being a positive thing? Do you think they're going to bring local manufacturing back? Are they going to make your lives easier? Are the regulations going to be less? Are you excited about this? Are you worried about this?
We've already seen in his last administration that regulations and things and manufacturing, that drive, even though Biden did sign the CHIPS Act, that was kind of started and implemented. And Ford, for example, I was working with Ford on a project, and Ford, because of a Trump bill, was able to expedite and build up a facility a lot faster here in American soil. So I do think for manufacturing, it is net positive.
All right. Oh, did you want to say something?
Well, I mean, I don't have to, but I think it's like the easy, and I don't mean easy, but I think it's like, okay, yeah, it's going to be good probably, but like the supply chain is pretty complicated. And when you just say, okay, we're going to like tariff the shit out of everything coming out of China, and then China's not going to want to sell stuff to our companies anymore, or they're not going to be a consumer of our products anymore. That's going to hurt a lot of the manufacturing that already is here, and Europe is going to get crushed by all of this. And so I think it's if it happens really fast, it's going to be a disaster. It's about speed. Like economies can't react that fast, and so if it happens gradually and slowly, it probably could be good. But if it's like all of a sudden we stop doing business with half the world, that's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah. Oh yes, agree.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to give these guys maybe 30, 45 seconds to play. Actually, Capella, you don't get to play anything. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Let's take maybe a moment or so to maybe share a website or how the zombie community can interact with your brands.
And you guys mentioned that you're hiring, so please let everyone know what you're hiring for as well.
Sabrina, please.
So Omni Ventures is, our website is omnivl.com, or you can find us at mfg.vc. We are investing in early stage pre-seed companies that are helping transform manufacturing. So definitely reach out to us.
Yeah, albertinvent.com. We're about 100 people right now. We'll probably be 200 by the end of this year. We're serving, like I said, the people that are creating the physical world, like the folks at Gecko would be an amazing customer. We're a multiplier, right? Because if you can make a great piece of software that millions of scientists that get 10% better, then you just go create 100,000 new scientists out there. So if you want to be a multiplier, come join us.
That's awesome. Gecko Materials, you can find us at www.geckomaterials.com. That's GECKO, materials with an S at the end.com. We are hiring manufacturing engineers and mechanical engineers. So anyone that does hands-on hardware, that's who we're hiring. If you have any experience in using your hands, a CNC machine, anything like that, please come apply directly to us. We are very excited to also share our YouTube channel, Gecko Materials. We have a Instagram, Gecko Materials, TikTok, all the things, all the social medias we have. Like and subscribe to everything. Like I mentioned, we did our first initial close that was oversubscribed, and we have an oversubscription for the second close, but we are looking for now the best of the best, because now we have that opportunity that we're very blessed. And I'm not going to put that lightly for anyone fundraising. It's a very difficult market right now, but we do have a small allocation that is open for an investor. So if you'd like to talk later, and then just if we can help you save energy, time, and money, please come find me. We'd love to have you as a customer. We'd love to come along your journey. If you're making hardware or robotics or anything of that nature, let Gecko Materials help you save energy, time, and money. So, and I'm in the Bay, so you can come visit me.
Let's get a round of applause for these delicious brains. And also make sure if you're available on the 14th, so in about a week's time, we're going to have another fantastic show, the Vitality Blueprint, about living longer, happier, healthier. Also, if you don't know how to get on the mailing list, that QR code over up right above Sabrina on that screen is a great way to do it. So scan it with your phone. And until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the night. All right, enjoy.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
That was so fun. Thank you.
That was loaded. That was a dirty question.
I was like, oh, we're going to go for a little bit longer.
That's fun.
Yeah.